This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Allison Russell on the recorder. Arkell's on the accordion. Shawnee Kish on the kazoo. The Canadian Music Class Challenge is back. Pick a song from our list, create a cover version, upload the video. Amazing prizes are up for grabs, including thousands of dollars worth of new musical instruments for your class. The deadline is November 18th. Check out all the details and register now at cbcmusic.ca/musicclass.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg at noon. It's mostly cloudy and 5 degrees downtown. It's 7 in Morden this hour and -2 in Lynn Lake. Winnipeg police are looking for 3 suspects after a woman was carjacked when she was leaving church Sunday evening. It happened on William near Isabel. Constable Steve Spencer says the 34-year-old woman was approached by a woman and 2 men who demanded her keys and belongings. One of the suspects had a weapon. They forced her out of the vehicle and drove off. Spencer says the victim didn't require medical attention. He says there are ways to keep yourself safe when you're downtown.
Being aware of your surroundings, it's kind of an easy answer to that, but really a good example of that would be if you have a cell phone or headphones. You're not really going to see somebody approaching you if you have headphones on and you're looking down at your phone. Just be aware.
No arrests have been made. Winnipeg Crime Stoppers is asking people who ride the bus to report any criminal activity on the bus. Today it launched a campaign with 50 bus benches across the city, encouraging people to help make transit safer. Crime Stoppers Chair Robert McKenzie reminds people they can report what they see and hear anonymously.
What we're asking is just keep your eyes and ears open and listen and observe and report. And again, the message on the bus is if you see something, say something.
The campaign comes as Winnipeg Crime Stoppers approaches its 40th anniversary. McKenzie says with the advent of social media, Crime Stoppers received a record number of tips last year at slightly more than 4,000. He says it's on pace to exceed that number of tips this year. People in the PAW are breathing easier this afternoon. They were told to keep their doors and windows locked after 2 inmates escaped last night from the PAW Correctional Centre. One inmate was rearrested last night, but the second inmate was still out there overnight and into this morning. RCMP say they caught up to Brandon Anderson at Grace Lake Airport, and they thank the public for their help and vigilance. The Bloc Québécois leader has a warning. The clock is ticking for the Liberal government.
In the meantime, they are seriously in danger to fall.
The deadline for the Liberals to pass 2 bills put forward by the Bloc has now passed. Yves-François Blanchet says the Bloc will now begin talks with other opposition parties about bringing down the government, a move that would force an early election.
Not only are we ready, but we might be expecting that with enthusiasm. I do not believe that Quebecers want elections so much, but I do believe that they will understand that this is where we are now.
The Bloc and Conservatives combined would still come up short in a non-confidence motion. That means it would be up to Jagmeet Singh and the NDP to cast decisive votes one way or the other. The owner of a West End Winnipeg grocery store says graffiti drawn on the sidewalk outside the store is a hate crime. Ramsey Zeed is the president of the Canadian Palestinian Association of Manitoba, and he and his family own the food fair on Portage at Arlington. He says security camera video on Sunday shows a man and a woman drawing stars of David in chalk in front of the store. Zeed says there have been a number of incidents at his stores recently. He says they have increased security.
What else do we do? I mean, we're always constantly looking over our shoulders. Looking twice, making sure that we're aware of our surroundings, but what else can we do?
Zeed has reported the incident to police. Police confirm they are investigating, and the incident has been sent to the hate crimes coordinator. Donald Trump is defending Sunday's Republican presidential rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. Speakers made a number of racist and misogynist comments, and one referred to Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. Trump insists the gathering was full of love.
There's never been an event so beautiful. It was like a love fest, an absolute love fest, and it was my honor to be involved.
Trump spoke this morning at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, with the U.S. Election Day 1 week from today. He accused Kamala Harris of running on a campaign of hate and said he's running on a plan to save America. That's the same message Harris is set to give tonight in what she is calling her closing argument. She will speak on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., the same spot where Trump made his January 6th speech in 2021. More than 48 million Americans have voted early. According to the latest polls, Harris is leading Trump by a single point, 44-43. The city of Brandon has opened its temporary drop-in center early this year. There's been strong demand for an overnight winter drop-in space since 2022 when the city's only homeless shelter reached capacity. The Brandon Friendship Center will be running the temporary shelter this year out of Life's Journey on Princess. Drop-in worker Dante Pache says people need options when they don't have a safe place to go at night.
It's beneficial to our people in the community for the overnight because not a lot of people have nowhere to go after 7 p.m. Some people have somewhere to go after 7 p.m., sometimes they don't. This is their space to be warm, safe for these cold nights.
The drop-in shelter will be open from 7 at night until 7:30 in the morning, 7 days a week until March 31st. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 12:30. In Winnipeg today, cloudy and a high of 9. Brandon, mainly cloudy and a high of 9. For Flin Flon, cloudy, 30% chance of showers and a high of 3. And in Churchill, cloudy, west wind 40 gusting to 60, temperature steady near -3.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Lori Hoogstraten. It is Tuesday, November the 29th, and it's kind of cloudy out there. We're looking for a high of 9 degrees, and it's only a week until the American election, and there is a lot at stake for Canadians in this U.S. election. Coming up in our call-in this afternoon, we want to know what's top of mind for you just 1 week before the Americans head to the polls. Are you hopeful? Are you worried? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. And in a few minutes, we'll meet some grade 12 grads who turned around and went right back to high school after another year of training to follow their passion for filmmaking. But first up, why the temporary overnight drop-in center has opened early in Brandon. It's 7 minutes after 12 o'clock. Brandon has opened its temporary drop-in center early this year, just as the temperature drops. There's been a strong demand for an overnight winter drop-in space since 2022. That's when the city's only homeless shelter reached capacity. The Indigenous-led Brandon Friendship Center will be running the temporary shelter that just opened last night. It's a welcome addition to the existing Safe and Warm shelter. Up until now, that's been the only option for people seeking shelter. Samaritan House runs Safe and Warm, where Barbara McNish is the executive director. She explained the changes she's been seeing to the CBC's Chelsea Kemp.
We've been seeing the numbers steadily increasing, what I think last year was 475 with about 11,000 bed nights. And so I just think we're seeing that. But we're also seeing the drop-in. We have people that come around 7 o'clock in the evening, and they're coming for a meal, too, because there isn't any place that they really can get a hot meal or even just a sandwich or whatever we happen to have that night. So I believe when I talked to Heather, I believe she said that it was upward close to 60. Now, we're only a 41-bed shelter. So staying for the evening, I think we're around 30-ish, 35-ish. So we haven't met our max yet, but it's not been that cold yet. But people are coming for other needs rather than just a place to sleep. So keying on that, we're excited that the drop-in is opening as well tonight. So that is exciting for us because you know what, networking with other agencies that support that drop-in and, can help with other people that maybe don't want to sleep for the night. They don't always want to come in at 7 o'clock and have a bite to eat and in bed by 8:30. So how are we helping people make their choices that they would like, and how are we able to support those choices that they want to make? So they want to come in for 4 hours, or they want to come in for 2.5 hours, or whatever the case may be. And then we've got others that are exhausted, and they're coming in and they want to have a good night's sleep, you know? So there's a variety of reasons people come, and their needs are different.
How much do you worry when the weather starts to get cold?
Well, that breaks our hearts. I mean, we've had to make some hard choices sometimes, and at 40 or 50 below, and it does break our hearts, because people need to also be accountable and safe. And part of the criteria for Samaritan House or Safe and Warm has always been, can you come in? Can you go to bed? Can you keep yourself safe while we're doing that? And sometimes if they can't, then we have to say, try tomorrow night. And it's heartbreaking, but again, balancing it with responsibility, accountability, and with offering an opportunity.
Well, and it sounds like maybe there's more peace of mind knowing there's another option.
Well, yeah, we found that when we had the queue, that we needed another option. So we are pleased that there's another option besides just out on the street. I'm so happy that we're opening, in October.
Barbara McNish, director of Samaritan House in Brandon, which operates the Safe and Warm shelter in Brandon. Kemp also spoke with Heather Bullock, the shelter's manager. She asked how being unhoused is changing in Brandon.
Well, we're certainly seeing more people who are unhoused. We're seeing more people who are precariously housed. Certainly the precariously housed folks. We're not seeing the increase in options for people for housing. And considering the numbers that are coming into town and the amount of people in town who've become precariously housed, there are very minimal options for people.
How many people do you see on average at Safe and Warm?
Well, we're probably seeing 55 people throughout the evening. That includes people who are coming to Safe and Warm for food. We're certainly recognizing that more and more people who are either housed or precariously housed are coming to Safe and Warm to have a meal. Probably about 15 people per evening are coming just to eat food.
Is that something newer that's happening?
Absolutely. We've always had a few people that have come to eat and then they choose to leave. But the amount of people that we're seeing now has absolutely increased that are coming just for food. Yeah.
And I remember getting the temporary overnight shelter really became an issue about 3 years ago. Has it gotten better since then?
No, it has not. The numbers probably are even more now than they were 3 years ago, which is frightening because right now we haven't had to turn people away, but we have had to stop doing intake for 15, 20 minutes in order to allow the folks that are coming in just to eat a chance to eat, finish up, and then we can restart intake. So that has been relatively manageable with the temperatures the way they are. But once it starts snowing, once it starts storming, it is going to be more and more difficult for people to be waiting outside while other people are in here eating and then on their way once they're done eating. It's really increased the numbers.
Are people just coming here to sleep, or are they coming here for other stuff?
Typically, I think we would always have assumed that folks are coming to a shelter because of the temperatures, whether they are extreme, right? Extreme cold, extreme heat. But people are coming to the shelter for safety reasons too. It's a complex issue why a person would come into the shelter. It's just as complex as why people would choose not to come into a shelter. But personal safety is certainly a factor for people to come here. Everybody is dealing with issues around inflation and the cost of living. Food insecurity is very real for folks who are both unhoused and precariously housed, and for anybody who is housed securely as well. And the amount of people that are coming out and looking for support around food has also shown us the importance of having a space like the Safe and Warm Shelter, where, you know, you might have access to food at the food bank, but do you have the space to cook it properly? Do you have the capacity to cook some of the meat or whatever? It's also around community. People like to be together and eat communally and be together as a, you know, whether you are a family living in a home together or you are a street family, it's important for people to have that sense of being together.
Heather Bullock is the manager of Safe and Warm Shelter in Brandon. The drop-in shelter operates out of Life's Journey on Princess Street. It's open from 7 at night until 7:30 in the morning, 7 days a week until March 31st. And you can read more on this story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, and coming up later in the show, it's 1 week from the American election on November the 5th. And in our call-in conversation, we are wondering what is top of mind for you in these turbulent days. Are you hopeful? Are you fearful? What do you think is going to happen? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. And right now, it sounds like I'm alone in the studio, but I'm really not. There's 3 other people in here because we are going to be talking to some grade 12 grads who turned around and went right back to high school for another year of training just to follow their passion for filmmaking. And also their educator is in here too. They're all being deathly silent, but they were yakking away a few minutes ago. So we'll try and stir that up again in a second. Let's take a look at the forecast. No Riley today, so I'm channeling Riley. Cloudy and 9 in Winnipeg today. Mainly cloudy tonight with the winds becoming north at 20 after midnight. Lows of +1. In Brandon today, mainly cloudy and highs of 9 and down to -4 tonight. And let's see, in the Thompson region, cloudy. Chance of flurries, highs of +2. Cloudy tonight with lows of -8. And in Churchill, way up north, winds west 40, gusting to 60. That's windy. And wind chills near -12. Some temperatures. In Brandon, it's 5. Churchill is 0. Dauphin is 4. In Ginley, also 4. The Paw is 3. In Thompson, it's 2. Winnipeg, it's mostly cloudy and 5 degrees. It is coming up to 17 minutes after 12 o'clock. You're listening to CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM. Well, Martin Scorsese, Jordan Peele, and Greta Gerwig, watch your backs. A new crop of budding filmmakers are chasing their own big screen dreams. They're all grade 12 grads who headed right back into high school for an extra year to take part in Create, a program at Winnipeg Sisler High School that focuses on training in the creative industries. Students can take courses in filmmaking as well as animation, game design, visual effects, and graphic design. CBC Manitoba is in its 3rd year of mentoring Sisler film students and helping them produce short documentaries. Here are some clips from previous projects.
So this is Dylan's room. It has always been Dylan's room. Sort of messy because we left it sort of the way he had it, which was messy, disorganized.
When he started to understand that I was losing friends to cancer and his grandparents battled cancer, he had said to me from probably 8 years old and on, I don't want to die of cancer.
My name is Calandra Stroop. My pronouns are she, her. I like to keep things clean. I like to wash my hands. So I do a lot of hand washing. I do a lot of showering. I do a lot of cleaning. Every little thing that I do, I have to think about the consequences that it could have and what sort of compulsions it could lead to. It's really just, it's kind of agonizing and it never ends.
We lived in a house that had a lot of paranormal activity. And I mean, when you're a kid, you just think, it's just noises, and your mom and dad go, that's just the pipes in the wall, and blah, blah, blah. Doors would close and opening, lights would turn on and off, and we would hear footsteps outside our bedrooms, my sister and I. I knew something was weird, and there was a name for it, or, ghosts or paranormal.
Those are highlights from some of the stories produced last year by students from the CREATE program. And in the coming months, CBC Manitoba will air new short documentaries by a new class of students. And we're going to meet a couple of them. Student filmmakers Samira Abalor and Shay Miller are here in the studio. Hi.
Hi.
I'm getting the giggles just looking at these young women. They look so happy. Also joining us, looking happy as well, is CREATE educator Marcus Fowler. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So Shay, let's start with you. What drew you to filmmaking?
I've always been very drawn to narrative style, and as a kid, just growing up, the only way that I found I was able to express myself to anybody was through visual arts. I've never been well at communicating well with my words or like explaining how I felt. So I felt like being drawn to storytelling and showing people how I felt versus telling them was the only way that I was able to express my emotions. So that was something that I had to go on as a journey as a kid.
Okay. And how did you do that as a kid?
Well, I've always been dancing since I was very young.
Yeah.
And I found that I would always try to make like little movies at home just as a kid, just kind of like messing around. And then I realized one day that it was something that I could turn into a career. And it was something that whenever I was watching a movie, I could never focus on like what was going on in the film. I'd always be looking at like the lighting, the camera angles.
Right.
And it was something that I was just so drawn to.
Yeah.
And then it just clicked one day that it was something that I could pursue as a career.
Yeah. And Samira, you've been drawn to storytelling as well, from what I understand. How did that go for you?
I've always loved writing and creating stories. And during recess in elementary school, my friends would be wanting to play tag, and I'd be like, guys, but can we sit down and like talk about my story idea? And so I've always known that I love creativity with writing. And then in high school, my art teacher, Miss Wallace, she introduced me to Creative Manitoba's workshop programs for teenagers. And one of them was filmmaking with your iPhone. And I went to that program, and then I was like, oh, okay, like I think I can actually direct too and film too, not just write. So, yeah.
Well, interesting, the two of you, you're all about the visuals and you have to add the words, and you're all about the words and you have to add the visuals. I sense a partnership.
Definitely, yeah.
That's right. So, and also, I think you've both faced different hurdles following your passion for film. So, Shay, I'll go back to you. I think I have it here that you were told that films were actually bad for your health for a time. What does that mean?
Yes. When I was in middle school, I was diagnosed with a non-epileptic seizure condition, and I was told that flashing lights became a very big trigger for me throughout this process. Right. And it's not something that I knew that the condition, I wouldn't have it forever. It was something that I would either grow out of or something that I could beat. And I unfortunately had a very bad case of it. So I struggled with it for over 5 years of my life growing up. And flashing lights was such a big inconvenience for me. And I had to step outside of all my classrooms in high school and middle school. And I wasn't allowed to watch any films in class just to eliminate the potential of having an episode. And I had to shy away completely from like watching films, like limiting screen time, because flashing lights became such a big trigger for me to have an episode. And then I decided one day that since I always loved storytelling and I always loved film, I wasn't going to let my condition define me, and I was going to try to beat it because I knew that it was something I wouldn't live with forever. And I tried my best to beat it so I could pursue this as a career, because I was not ready to settle for a job that I didn't want to do or a job that I didn't love as much as filmmaking and storytelling, because this is just something that I was so drawn to that I wasn't ready to settle to do anything else in my life.
And here you are making films, flashing lights and all. It's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. And Samira, your family, I understand, was initially a bit reluctant about you even going into film. What changed their mind?
It's kind of interesting because like to this month, 11 years ago, is when my family and I immigrated here from Nigeria. And my parents worked really hard to provide us with, different opportunities. And I don't think, they moved here like, I'm going to move here. My daughter's going to want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, no.
But, they kind of just went with it because my mom's always drilled in me and my siblings that we should have a job where it doesn't even feel like you're working. And that's what film is like to me. It feels like so much fun. It's a lot of hard work, but I feel really fulfilled after. And after I told them I was doing this program, we were just in the car listening to CBC radio. And then I heard one of our teachers, Mr. DL, and these two other students talking about Sisler Create. And I was like, oh my gosh, turn it up. Like, that's the program I'm doing next year. And I feel like it added some like legitimacy to them. Like,
right.
This is real. Yeah.
This is like your gap year. You're feeling, but still going forward with what you really want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, interesting that you both had stuff to overcome. It wasn't just la la la, I'll be a filmmaker. Like you've both had to really take it on. So Marcus, at long last, got to bring you in here. Marcus is an educator with Sisler and the Create program. So Marcus, tell us a bit about the program.
Yeah, so the program's been growing every year. It's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity for students to be able to pursue these creative interests that they have. One of the things that I think the Sisler Create program does particularly well is these industry partnerships. We're very, very focused on connecting students with professionals who are working out there who have been doing it for a long time in a mentorship capacity. Mm-hmm. So that's not just the film program that I teach in, but also in the game design program, the animation program. And this partnership with CBC is that exactly. It's been great every year that we've been doing this, and it's just such a fantastic opportunity for the students to create real-world projects. Mm-hmm. So often in high school programs, you just don't have the time or resources to do all of that. So in this post-high program where students are only taking this one area, they can do these real-life programs. They learn more than just the filmmaking, but it's the client relations, taking and applying feedback, managing a budget oftentimes, and having their work actually go out there for the public to see, which gives them such a great opportunity to see what that's like. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our students go on to further post-secondary training afterwards, but I always tell students that I think it's a no-brainer to do this first because you really get to see if this is something that you love and develop your passion, as well as your resume, your portfolio, and all those other things.
And is that what most students do is go on to either something like creative communications or fine arts and film or something like that?
It's kind of a mix. Yeah. Some students go directly into working, and that's definitely an option for them. They make so many contacts with different businesses or professionals in the field throughout this year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them go directly into that type of thing. But this past year, or from last year, about 10 of our students are in the digital film and media program at Red River College this year. So that's often a popular option as well.
Well, we've just got a minute or two left, so I want to have time to ask this both of Samira and Shay. What's the big dream for you? What is your ultimate dream as a filmmaker? Shay, you start.
Well, me and Samira actually have very similar aspirations. Yeah. I believe we spoke about this. We both joined the program to build our portfolio before we move on to study post-secondary, so we could build our portfolios for that. Yeah. And I know I personally have aspirations to direct, do videography, and then also produce and write.
Yeah,
Samira?
That's the same for me. My biggest dream is to have a really good production company and something that other people can watch and be like, that's really great content. Or I wonder how she did that. Now I'm inspired to write something like that, or just be entertained by it. Yeah.
So have you started hiring people for your production company? Have you imagined yourself on the red carpet?
Oh,
well,
for sure.
I have hundreds of workers right now.
Yeah,
actually.
Auditions tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there's some teamwork going on already in your productions. You got your acceptance speeches all written for your next big award?
Oh, yeah.
They're ready.
They're ready, yeah. I can tell that they're ready. And it's just been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio. And also, quite often when you do live radio, people are kind of terrified and you have to kind of yank stuff out of them. You guys are all naturals. You'll go far. It's just been a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Those were Create student filmmakers Samira Abalor and Shay Miller with Sister High School educator Marcus Fowler, who helps run Create's filmmaking program. And to watch the Sister Create projects from previous years, go to cbc.ca/creatornetworkmb. Thanks a lot.
New this month on CBC Gem, 2 of Canada's longest-running shows are back for their 18th seasons.
You're going to be introduced to a new world.
Murdoch Mysteries brings more intrigue and invention as Detective Murdoch faces new challenges.
I would say it's extremely bad form to arrest your new boss.
And over at Heartland, life on the ranch rolls along at a more relaxed pace.
Looks like Stetson's back to his old self.
Season 18 of Murdoch Mysteries and Heartland. Watch free on CBC Gem.
There's one in Ontario named after a shoemaker. In Pennsylvania, you can visit a chocolate-sounding one. The English have one that's soapy. And in Japan, there's a whole big city named after a compact car. From Ottawa to Port Sunlight, company towns on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
Coming up after the 12:30 news, we are talking about the American election on November the 5th. What are your thoughts? Are you worried? Are you hopeful? Give us a call, 204-780-0893, and tell us what's top of mind for you with the U.S. election. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg at 12:30. It's mostly cloudy and 7 degrees downtown, mostly cloudy and 6 in Brandon, mostly cloudy and 2 in Thompson. A carjacking outside a West Alexander church has police warning people to be aware of their surroundings. Police say around 9:15 Sunday night, a 34-year-old woman was going to her car after church. Constable Steve Spencer says a woman and 2 men approached her and demanded her keys and personal belongings. He says one of the suspects was armed. They pulled the woman out of her car and drove off. Spencer says she didn't require medical attention. He says for everyone's safety, it's important to pay attention to what's happening around you.
So I think that we can be advocates for other citizens. If you see something, rather than pulling your phone out and trying to get that next TikTok hit, you can phone 911 and actually look at a description of somebody so that you can provide good information to police and help the person next to you.
Spencer says so far no arrests have been made. Winnipeg Crime Stoppers is focusing on the city's transit system with its latest campaign. The tip line is celebrating its 40th year next month. Board Chair Robert McKenzie says they have put up 50 bus benches letting transit riders know they can report tips on crimes seen on the bus.
Winnipeg Transit sees an average of 171,000 riders a day. That's a lot of eyes and ears on the transit system. So what we're asking is very simple. If you see something, say something.
McKenzie says last year they received an unprecedented number of tips with just over 4,000. He says the number of tips so far this year has already surpassed that. RCMP have found 2 inmates who escaped last night from the Paw Correctional Centre. People in the Paw were being told to keep their doors and windows locked, but are now breathing easier. 1 inmate was rearrested last night. The 2nd inmate was still on the lam overnight and into this morning. RCMP say they caught up to Brandon Anderson at Grace Lake Airport, and they thank the public for their help and vigilance. And finally, Brandon has opened its temporary drop-in center just in time for temperatures to drop. There's been a need for a winter overnight drop-in center since 2022 when the city's only shelter, the Safe and Warm, had more clients than beds. This winter, the Brandon Friendship Center is operating the temporary drop-in. Safe and Warm manager Heather Bullock says the number of people experiencing homelessness keeps growing. She says they need more options to keep people safe at night.
To have another space for people to make that choice as to how they want to spend their evening. And the most important piece, of course, is that if we hit capacity and we are not able to bring in another person, there is a safe option for people.
The overnight drop-in space at Life's Journey on Princess in Brandon will be open until March 31st. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. In Winnipeg today, cloudy and a high of 9, mainly cloudy again tonight, with the winds becoming north at 20, lows of +1. On Wednesday, a mix of sun and cloud, clearing near noon, highs of 6. And looking ahead to Halloween, cloudy, highs of +4, but clears up in the night and down to -7. In Brandon today, mainly cloudy and highs of 9. Partly cloudy, the winds northwest at 20 later this evening and lows of -4. There's even wind chills, but we're just going to skip the wind chills. It's too early for wind chills. Let's see what Halloween looks like in Brandon. Cloudy and lows of -6. Kind of cool. Thompson today, cloudy, 30% chance of flurries. Winds becoming west at 20, gusting to 40 early this afternoon, highs of +2. And tonight, cloudy with still a 30% chance of flurries and lows of -8. Halloween in Thompson is -15. Parka over the costumes. And in Churchill today, cloudy, winds west at 40, gusting to 60. A windy day in Churchill. Temperature steady near -3. And tonight will be cloudy and lows of -7 with that wind still gusting to 60. And some temperatures at this hour. In Brandon, it's 5. In Churchill, it's 0. In Dauphin, it is 4. Gimli is 4. The Paw is 3. Thompson is 2. In Winnipeg, it's mostly cloudy and 5 degrees. And you are listening to Radio Noon. I'm Lori Hoogstraten. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. And what we are trying to do right now is hook up with our guest on the our call-in today, because it is about what's at stake for Canadians in this U.S. election. Coming up, our call-in conversation is going to be with Marco Vellotti, who is editor-in-chief of iPolitics. And we want to talk to you. And in fact, even if we don't get him on the line quite yet, you can give me a call and tell me what you think about the election coming up. Call me at 204-780-0893 and let me know what you think about the election. Will it be Kamala Harris? Will it be Trump? What's going to happen in Canada? Give me a call, 204-780-0893, or you can text me at 204-588-7355, because we are just 1 week away from the election. So much at stake for Canadians as well in the final days of the race, from trade talks and tariffs to immigration and defense spending. And Canadians will be watching the results closely and wondering what the impact will be north of the border. So let us know, what are you thinking about in these days leading up to the election? What are your hopes and your fears, your opinions? Joining me now is Marco Vellotti, editor-in-chief of iPolitics. Hello, Marco.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So tell me, what are you watching this final week?
I mean, there's just
everything.
So many
yeah.
storylines, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting, I think, just how, considering all the kind of madness of the past 4 to 5 months in particular, how nothing has really kind of changed in terms of the polling trend lines. I think you've seen a really, really, really close race. It's not quite clear if anything can really kind of shake up the state of play with, like we said, just a week out. I'm not quite certain that anything would really kind of impact that. So what I'm looking to see if we're going to see any movement, anything significant change up. Am I confident that will happen? Not quite at this time, at least.
Well, things keep chopping and changing, and tones keep changing, and locations, and sort of significant remarks being made. I think the last thing I heard this morning was that Kamala Harris was like 1 point ahead of Trump, but of course that's not even you can't pay any attention to those sorts of things. But listen, we have some people on the line already that we will get to, so we want to know what you're thinking. People out there listening to the radio and watching us on YouTube. What does the election in the U.S., what are the implications for you? What are you thinking about? What are your opinions? And we'll talk to Brenda. Brenda. Hello, Brenda.
Hi.
What are you thinking about this election? Are you hopeful? Are you trepidatious? What?
I'm hopeful that Kamala is going to win. I'm trepidatious because once she has won, I'm not sure that win is going to be secure. Trump already said it is big rally the other day that him and Johnson, the leader of the House, have a secret. And that secret could very well be that the House will not vote to certify the election. So that's pretty scary. What happens after that, who knows? The only consolation I take from this whole thing is that, unlike last time, Trump was in power when he lost the election. This time, Joe Biden will still be in power for 2 months after that election date, and will have all the resources of the government to tamp down any other coup that's coming his way. So and as far as Canada's concerned, I think Canadians should wake up to the fact that we've got the same thing going on here. In what used to be the Conservative Party is now what they call Maple MAGA, which embraces all the rhetoric, all the propaganda, all the alt-right social philosophies. It's not about the carbon tax.
Yeah.
It's about something much bigger than that.
Yeah, that's interesting, Brenda, about the transfer of power. I'm going to ask Marco what's he hearing, or what are his thoughts.
I mean, it's so interesting that we're having this debate. Maybe interesting is not the right term. Maybe a bit trepidatious or a bit concerning, I think would be a better adjective to throw there. That we're having this debate about, well, what if a losing candidate loses? Like, what are their next steps? Before 2020, it seemed pretty simple. You concede and you walk away, and the transfer of power happens, perhaps not seamlessly, but certainly assuredly. It's not quite clear what would happen. It's not quite clear, especially if this is a close race. I don't think too many people are confident that we'll have a result on Tuesday night, probably bleed into early Wednesday. But, even that's not a certainty that we'll have a decision. I think back in 2020, it wasn't until 3 or 4 days later that we finally had some clarity, or maybe even maybe longer than that. I'm blanking a bit on my memory.
Yeah.
So I think it's wild that we're having this discussion right now of what happens if she wins and he refuses to accept the results, and what that road will look like. A lot of kind of concerning signals from the Trump team that they probably won't go down without a fight.
It's absolutely mind-boggling, as you say. And there are so many things to consider, as Brenda pointed out, and as you have. And we want to hear from our listeners, 204-780-0893. What do you think are the factors in play with this election? If you've been watching the campaigning, of course, on Kamala Harris's part rather a short, intense campaign, and Trump being Trump, trying to get votes his way, give us a call about what you think is going to happen and what that will mean when it does happen. 204-780-0893. And we have Mark on the line. Hello, Mark.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What are your thoughts?
I'm completely disgusted with the whole Trump campaign and them with all the rhetoric that they're just pushing, and it's very, very hurtful. And this is just a glimpse of what is going to happen if he wins for the next 4 years. As for Canada, how does this affect Canada? It affects Canada hugely. We see how he likes to treat other adversaries and other foes. He doesn't treat his friends very well, but he praises his so-called friends, the Putins of the world. So for Canada, this is a real eye-opener. For people who think that this will be great for Canada, it's not going to be. I tried to watch both sides of the election, the Democratic and the Republicans, and she's constantly having to prove herself of what she wants to put going forward. Where if you listen to him, there's no plan. It's just rhetoric. It's just calling people fat, calling people stupid, calling people dumb. Like there's no actual plan for him going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been at this for 700 and something days, and this is all that he could do because he's got no plan.
Yeah.
He's got concepts of plans, and she's put a plan together in 3 months, and she's constantly being ridiculed. And it's like, if she could put something in 3 months and you can't in 700 days, there's something wrong with U.S. politics. I have friends that live in U.S. From Canada, and they're completely disgusted.
Well, let's go to Marco and ask him about that. Do you feel that Americans are sort of wise to what might be described as Trump's rhetoric versus what Kamala's trying to put across? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think from the Canadian perspective, it's really interesting to kind of see the kind of division in popularity. Whereas I think a recent poll showed that I think 60% of Canadians would vote in favor of Kamala and 21% would vote in favor of Trump. So I think Canadians have a hard time in understanding why the race is so close in the United States. But the dynamics have kind of shifted. I think in 2016 when he first ran, there definitely seemed to be this like discomfort with admitting, even to pollsters, that hey, I'm going to back this guy in the election. Whereas now they're definitely seeing that kind of veil has been ripped off, and I think there is this growing comfort level with people who back Trump that they're comfortable, publicly supporting them, even as the rhetoric from that camp gets more heated. The attacks on her become meaner. They lean harder into misogyny. I mean, it's just been a very kind of ugly race, and I don't know if you can make the argument that a lot of those hits are coming from the Harris campaign. A lot of that energy is coming from the Trump campaign. A lot of the rhetoric or the focus of that campaign has been something was stolen or taken from Trump, and a lot of calls, subtle and not so subtle calls for retribution. So some alarming stuff being voiced stateside. How Americans are viewing this race. I mean, the polls show a dead heat, so I don't know if things have really shifted that much from 2020.
Well, and I was interested to hear this morning on some radio analysis that the Mormon community in Utah, Church of Latter-day Saints, which is sort of small but vocal and tend to have some impact in both Arizona and Nevada, are turning from Trump. More of them on the basis of character, and it was said that they finally know it's too much, and they're trying to influence their own supporters that on basis of character they're looking towards Kamala. But I also want to ask you to just bring it back to Canada. What would you say are the issues at stake for Canadians? Is it about trade and export and tariffs? What's at stake for us?
Well, it's interesting because both Trump and Harris have put forward, I think, who you call maybe not very, but definitely isolationist policies. Both of them are talking about a Buy America agenda that would look to ensure that American products, American steel, American lumber were used in public works projects. And this is something that's been, something that has existed in various forms in the United States for a while now. But definitely, Trump has really kind of reoriented this debate where, you're taking harder stances, you're taking different approaches or stronger approaches to ensure that America's manufacturing base, is withstanding foreign competition. But both of them have kind of adopted similarly kind of harsh trade, isolationist policies on that front. Although, the rhetoric from the Trump campaign is always more severe. He's talking about a flat baseline tariff increase. Canada presumably would be included. We are due to review the new U.S.-Canada-Mexico trade agreement, which was brought forth under the Trump administration. The review's coming in a few years, and all the signals from the Trump camp is if he's in power, he's going to push for some pretty big concessions. So for Canada's stake, there's, obviously Canada has a lot at stake every time the U.S. goes to the polls, despite the similar kind of posturing, I think, on these big trade issues that could affect Canadians' bottom line. There's definitely, from the Trump campaign, something seemingly more restrictive than what Harris is proposing.
Mm-hmm. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, and let us know what you're thinking as we are 1 week away from the U.S. election of Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Who are you hoping will win, and what are you hoping will happen if whoever gains power in the U.S. election? And of course, all that does have some effect in Canada from all sorts of reasons. From people like declining to travel to the U.S. because they aren't keen on who's ever the president, to affecting your jobs. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. Now, Mark, I wondered if you could just kind of summarize the race to the White House this time, because it's been a bit different with Joe Biden stepping down and just things like the word fascist being used, and Kamala Harris having to temper some of her positions and in a very short time. How would you sum it up?
I mean, wow, like that's okay. That's a very good summary. It's just been a wild, rocky road to the White House for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I think the race, I say started, but it seemingly never ended. I mean, when Donald Trump, entered the primaries, there was the expectation that there would be a stronger pushback from some of the Republican candidates, and that just simply never materialized. It was Trump's party. He was able to walk through the primaries with no opposition, just like Joe Biden was. And then, of course, when they had the debate in June, a lot of questions were raised about Joe Biden's mental faculties. And I do feel if this was a quote unquote normal race where Joe Biden was facing off against maybe a more moderate mainstream Republican, someone like Mitt Romney back in 2012, I don't know if the pressure would have been so severe to step down. But there was that vocal call within the Democratic Party saying, we can't let this guy win. So if you're our issue, get out the way and let's get someone else in. So Harris, Biden eventually heard this feedback. He withdrew from the race, endorsed Kamala, and she had a really kind of good momentum bump early on. I think that her youth in a race that was pitting two octogenarians against each other really kind of, I think, shook things up.
Yeah,
she's the first woman of color to be nominated by a major party for the presidential nomination. So these are all big historical factors. But as the momentum maybe kind of shifted a bit, or maybe just stalled, the Trump campaign was able to kind of claw back, and the polling bump that she had also got clawed back, and we basically have been kind of at a knife's edge, I want to say, since the late summer. Of course, it was a horrendous assassination attempt on Mr. Trump's life. And just all this kind of heated rhetoric about, retribution, about punishing enemies, about the last race, just led to this, really kind of, very visceral, mean-spirited race. But at the same time, the trend lines have been pretty steady, where each side seems to be a total toss-up a week before the vote.
Well, that's why this week coming up is so important, and I think why we're all paying so much attention to it. There's much to talk about, and we have Pat on the line. We'll see what Pat has to say. Hi, Pat.
Hi.
So what are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that as a Canadian, I'm obsessed with listening to what's happening in the States, and I'm absolutely terrified. So if I, as a Canadian, that aren't going to be directly impacted, how are the Americans feeling? They must be absolutely having nervous breakdowns.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your biggest concern?
I think democracy. The fact that we may lose a democracy as our next door neighbor. And, oh my God, you just have to look across the ocean to see what's happening in Europe and the rise of right-wing thought to be really concerned for Canada. And especially with the what's happening in our own Canadian Parliament.
Well, you raise a good point, Pat, because it's almost unimaginable. And Marco mentioned this off the top too, that we are talking about the possible extinction of democracy, not just in the U.S. but elsewhere. This is kind of the harbinger of things to come. Now, perhaps I'll go to Marco and ask him to expand a bit on that. Thank you very much for calling.
Yeah, I mean, you saw in 2020 what happened when the race went against Trump, the riots at the Capitol. And I think the fact that the question that, reporters are putting towards them, are you going to accept the results of this election? This is not something you usually ask a candidate in a race. You don't ask them, hey, if you lose, are you going to accept it? Because there seemingly is no alternative. What do you do if you lose? I mean, you shrug your shoulders, try again maybe next time. But the fact that we just simply don't know how Trump is going to respond and how his supporters will respond if he loses the race. And a lot of it seems to be dependent on just his approach to the election results. If we have this race that happens and half the country votes for Trump and maybe 50 plus one votes for Kamala, and she wins, and that other 50% doesn't believe that the results are fair or free, you have a huge problem.
Yeah.
So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the future of democracy in the United States. It's if one side doesn't believe that the entire race is fair and free, how do you bring together, opposing views? How do you bring together a whole diverse country, especially, the really kind of, extremist elements who are very angry with the straight direction? How do you convince them to vote, at the ballot to use your voice at the ballot box, as opposed to doing something like we saw on January 6th.
Exactly. And 1 week to go. Thank you very much, Marco, for raising these issues. And I know they're top of mind for all of us and will be. And thanks very much for explaining a few things and bringing your insights to us. Thanks. That's Marco Vlati. He is the editor-in-chief of iPolitics, an online news site that focuses on politics. And as a matter of fact, we're going to have some coverage of the election the day after the election, because next Wednesday morning, Information Radio is going to be broadcasting live from Fargo. So the day after the election, Marcy Marcusa and Corey Funk will be on location with the morning show from Randy's Diner on 32nd Avenue. So we'll have lots of coverage then. But right now, let's go to a well-known and beloved American, Willie Nelson. We're going to hear from him. Wait a minute. I'm just going to find out which Willie song we're going to hear. Oh, he's releasing a new album. How about that? This is called Lost Cause.
Your sorry eyes, they cut through the bone, making it hard to leave you alone, leaving you here, wearing your wounds, waving your guns at somebody new. Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're a lost cause. There's too many people you used to know. They see you coming and they see you go. They know your secrets and you know theirs. Town is crazy, but nobody cares. Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're a lost cause. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting. Fighting for a lost cause. There's a place where you are going, and you ain't never been before. There's no one laughing at your back now. No one standing at your door. Is that what you thought love was for? Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're lost. Baby, you're a lost cause. Tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting. Fighting for a lost cause.
That's Willie Nelson covering Beck's Lost Cause, and his new album is called Last Leaf on the Tree, which is pretty chilling considering Waylon's long gone and Chris Christopherson, other buddy, died on September the 28th. That's Willie Nelson. Well, you've been listening to Radio Noon, and we enjoyed our discussion about what's the American election going to mean. It's only a week away. And I've just got time to say thank you to Marshall Hodgins and Wendy Parker and Kevin Nepitabo for getting the show on the air and on YouTube, on all those things. And I will talk to you again tomorrow, maybe, or it could be someone else. We'll see. Bye-bye.